politics of fear and hate are wrong. We love you and politics of compassion and love are right.
We are not going back.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 22 of Raised Red Living Blue. I'm Sloane Roden, joined by
Jason Will.
It is Thursday, May 1st, so I believe we are day 102 of this Trump presidency. But before we get into that, I just want to do a little personal check-in. How are you? How's the fam?
Well, how does somebody go from getting tased at the Marjorie Taylor Greene town hall to shopping at Target?
Oh, don't call me out.
Yeah, you just gave me that gift. That was awesome. I'm doing good. I'm still just super busy.
Yeah.
But I was watching the news last night. I mean, I got home last night just before 9 o'clock, and I was eating dinner at 8:45 and catching up on the news. And there was just all this doom and gloom on there about the economy, and I'm thinking, gee, should we be hoarding money away? Should we be? I mean, I think you naturally just kind of cut back and get conservative fiscally when these things happen. But I don't know, it was like a little shocking, like a little shock and awful.
Yeah, I definitely did that during COVID. I mean, I got very, very, very frugal and just stashed as much money away, which ended up working because then I had the down payment for this house.
Yeah.
And didn't have to be contingent on the sale of my other one. And holding on to that house and converting it into an Airbnb and then selling it later for much more, kind of like riding that market.
Yeah.
Worked out well for me. It's when the world opens back up and you can go places, it's hard to not spend. If you're just at home and there's no need to buy clothes because you're not seeing people every single day and you're not riding in the car every single day, it was so much easier to really pull in those finances.
Yeah.
It's hard to do that when, our job is to be out and about.
I don't know where we're going. It seems like we're talking third, fourth quarter. It could be scary, with empty shelves and, all that entails. So
yeah, I saw a quote from Trump saying instead of 30 dolls, kids are just going to have 2.
Maybe the children will have 2 dolls instead of 30 dolls, and maybe the 2 dolls will cost a couple of bucks more than they would normally. But
and it's and everybody is saying that's the 2025 version of let them eat cake.
yeah, it's really, I mean,
and this is going to be your children's sacrifice to our country.
seems like it goes to a new low, or he goes to a new low every single day. I mean, before I sat down on the couch with my microwave dinner last night at 8:45, I was just thinking to myself, I think I said it out loud. I was like, let me turn on the TV and see what dumbass is doing, or dumbass did today. And there was a bunch of new shit. It was the $30. And I thought, God, that is so entitled. That's something, that's so out of touch. It's like not reading the room. It's just all of those things that's just crazy.
And he is going on the assumption that everybody right now can afford the $30. And most people can't.
Yeah. I mean, well, there was a great point made about, most people are trying to afford eggs, not freaking dolls, eggs, gas, rent.
Yeah.
It's very, very disturbing. I know I say that every week, but it's just it gets worse and worse and worse. I was on my drive over here, I was thinking, man, I really need this therapy session. So I was like, I really
need to get in here and let it all out.
Yeah.
I listened to a podcast this week. This is my weekly recap of my New York Times The Daily favorite podcast of the week. And it was an Iowan farmer. And she was talking about how the tariffs are affecting her family farm. She's a third generation farmer on this land. And 100% of her products are sold directly to China. And she is a soybean farmer. I thought this was really cool and I appreciated this. She talked about her involvement in her soybean trade association at both the state and national level. And it's cool to hear other people in different, not necessarily trades, but different industries and them getting involved in their trade associations. And through that involvement, she's been to China, she said 8 or 9 times.
Wow.
She built a rapport. I can't remember his like specific title, but it's similar to like what we would consider like the labor secretary. And she said the relationships with China for exports like started under Nixon and really didn't take hold until the 90s. And so it was a very, very long relationship that had to be like developed over years to build that trust. And when that same person in the Chinese government, he came for a visit to the United States, came to Iowa and visited her at her family farm, and she let him drive one of the combines. And she thought, okay, this is a really way to like create stickiness and for them to humanize and personalize, like, okay, like when we have to make decisions about like where we're going to get our soybeans now. And she said, you know, will those relationships always trump prices? I don't know, but it at least like keeps us in the back of their mind. She didn't disclose who she voted for, and I mean, I kind of completely get why, but it was a very interesting take on what American farmers are experiencing. And she talked about, it was either the 70s or the 80s, the farm crisis, where we were manufacturing like an excess of farm goods, and we as like America couldn't consume it. So commodities prices were tanking. And that's why it was so beneficial for us and other nations to begin those exports.
Mm. Yeah, I think there's a lot of stories out there. This is something I think Democrats could be doing, that at the state, local, federal level, is just talking to their constituents, starting podcasts, getting these videos on YouTube. There's so many stories that need to be told out there. I did want to ask you about your thoughts about Beto O'Rourke and Doug Jones being in Tuscaloosa tonight.
I mean, what? I have like shout out to the UA College Democrats on kind of my list. You know, the University of Alabama College Democrats caught fire is when Rachel Maddow gave them a shout out on her TV program.
The response to Trump saying he was going to give the graduation address at the University of Alabama this year elicited quite the response from Alabama's college Democrats. They said in response to this news, quote, "We are shocked and disgusted to learn that our unpopular, divisive, and authoritarian president will be involved in commencement for the graduating class of 2025. Alabama College Democrats saying this insult will not go unanswered.
One thing I read this morning is one of the big reasons that the UA College Democrats are standing up against Trump, not wanting him to speak at the commencement speech, is because ICE has deported a University of Alabama student. Okay, this is a statement from the UA Democrats. The Trump administration kidnapped one of our PhD students for no reason a few weeks ago and is holding him without bond at an ICE black site in Louisiana. There is no greater insult than this.
I got asked to go to the Real Producers Crawfish Boil this afternoon. And the person that extended the invitation was messing with me, saying that it had been postponed to next week due to weather. It was an inside joke about somebody that couldn't be there this week, but could be there next week if it was postponed, that I personally just don't want to be around. So I was like, for real? Are you joking? Because I kind of want to...
I got to find out more about this off the air.
I kind of want to go to Tuscaloosa tonight to watch Trump get booed at Bama. And he replied back, "You communist," or "You commie," and then, with like a smile emoji. But, it's just, that is so like telling of where we are, and just the hypocrisy and just how crazy the insane things are. Because like my immediate thought was, this is so crude, but I was like, God, dude, the MAGAs are the ones with their tongues up Putin's ass.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
dude, we're not the ones acting like commies. Y'all the ones like taking the Constitution and twisting it like a rag in
What
your own
would that
favor.
person have said if you had replied and be like, but you're a Nazi? Like, he probably would have like flipped out.
Yeah.
Because that's essentially what they're saying to us.
Well, and it just goes back. So this,
And I'd say they are closer to Nazis than we are closer to communists.
Justin Jones sent me an article earlier this week or late last week, and he was like, I want to get your opinion on this. And it was about Democrats dying on the hill of Mr. Garcia and his deportation to the El Salvadorian prison. And I was like, and he was like, I don't think this is the issue we should be fighting for. And I replied and gave him some notes and said, yeah, I agree, but this is the bigger issue here, and it's what the Democrats are failing to seize on, because Hakeem Jeffries right now, from what I've gathered, is trying to get his caucus, nobody else in his caucus, to fly to El Salvador to meet Mr. Garcia. Because that's just not a good look, because on every political talk show, the Republican strategist or commentator talks about us dying on this hill. And it looks like we are supporting this MS-13 member who they're photoshopping MS-13 on his knuckles now. And then after that's debunked, they're like, oh, well, the symbols that are on his knuckles that are actually tattooed on his knuckles have gang relevance. It's all just so crazy. But I'm like, this is not about him. This is about a unanimous Supreme Court order that is being ignored.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
yes.
that's, I mean, so the Democratic
I would
Party
also say lack of due process.
100%.
Like, those are two really, really big deals. And all of these assholes all over social media say, well, Democrats care about due process now, but they didn't about January 6th. And it's like, no. Those motherfuckers had their day in court. That's part of due process. They just got their day in court because they're white.
Right.
And these people aren't because they're brown.
Well, I think we should be, we need to be doubling and tripling down on these important talking points, because it does feed the bleeding heart liberal narrative when these son of bitches fly down there to meet with this one immigrant, when there's a whole bigger picture here. I mean, I feel for this guy. I feel for his family. I can't imagine what that must be like to be in a place like that and having to come to terms with, this may be my reality forever. I may never get out of here.
Yeah.
And whether he deserves to be there or not, there's some serious shit happening, and they are able to successfully turn that around and cast a shadow on the shit that's happening in the darkness. It's really scary.
I don't know, because they do something absolutely absurd and against the law. And then when we want to defend the Constitution, we're radicals.
Because we're defending this guy who's supposedly a wife beater, a gang member. He's not a good person.
Or is that what they are spinning it as?
Well,
this is what it all goes to, is the radical right's spin on the truth.
But what happens is it allows them to get away with so much, because they started out saying they made a mistake. Like they are on record in court saying we made a mistake.
But you also have a president who, like, will not admit fault, will not back down, will only dig his heels in further, and is like clearly saying, like, I don't care what the Supreme Court rules, like, I'm not going to facilitate any of this.
Well, they said
we're dealing with somebody who's an absolute lunatic.
We made a mistake, we didn't make a mistake, to photoshopping proof, because they presented zero evidence in court. So instead of us being able to really shine a light on the severity of what's actually happening, the right just goes, look at these son of a bitches going on in El Salvador. We got real problems in the United States, and all they want to do is
I thought only
support
one
a terrorist.
representative went, and it was like somebody from his specific district.
No, more have gone. He's the only one that actually got in, but more have gone. And, But besides them going, they're still going on talk shows and not making the most relevant point, which is this is about the separation of powers. Our three branches of government are supposed to be separate but equal, but every day goes by, the Republicans are actively working to give Trump more power.
Yep.
Supreme Court played its role in giving Trump more executive power. It just seems like every other branch of government's a freaking joke. But there's some really serious stuff happening in, like, I think down to what you were talking about, like with these local farmers. Like, let's elevate the voice of everything state and local, and then let's really amplify things on the federal level that are really pointing to a serious constitutional crisis. But it's overshadowed when we're just talking about this man or these men or these people, because
and I think it's overshadowed because it's sensationalized and people love the dopamine hit and they don't want to learn more. It goes in like we get in this do loop of like what the fucking human condition is right now, and it's wanting these sensational stories and the clickbait and being able to spew untruths because people don't want to like dig further into them. They don't care about the true journalism, and in that true journalism is about to go away. Like, did you see that the producer or the director of 60 Minutes is stepping down because of the lawsuit that Trump has against CBS? So like, and I've heard people say, in the media, like the media as we know it, like will be changing and is not going to be like what it has always been. And that is what should be the scary thing. But nobody wants to talk about that. They want to dig in on these things like transgender issues and Abrego Garcia and just spew. I don't know the answer to how we combat that, but like I know for me personally, I'm not falling into that trap.
Well, I think it was a very powerful point that Jason Patton made a couple episodes ago about, because I went in there searching for answers, in his opinions. And he made a really good one. He was just like, you've got these Americans who are concerned about democracy and the Constitution.
Yeah.
That was, I don't know what level that was on. I think that was probably like maybe 3 or 4 on the list of concerns and why Trump got elected. I mean, the economy and the border were at the top.
Yep.
Democracy was kind of somewhere down below that. There's definitely been a shift, and democracy's probably right below the economy, and probably immigration is below that, because the reality is that Trump has secured the border to a level that has never been seen before in the history of the United States. That is an absolute fact. And that's what people are latching on. They're like, oh, we got a secure border and we get to say fuck you to liberals. I mean, that was Jason Patton's point. It's like, fuck liberals.
Yep.
Any chance we get to just double down on that, people are willing, they would rather say fuck liberals than worry about whether the Constitution is in a crisis or not. And that's scary as hell. How do these people at these Trump rallies, when they're asked about whether they would want, if they had to choose between Biden and Putin, they would choose Putin? I'm just like, how does that, I can't even make that make sense in my mind, no matter any way I spin it. And then Jason Patton comes in and goes, it's all about fuck you.
Yeah.
That's how much they hate liberals, is that they would choose Putin over Biden. It's anything other than the liberal mindset, the liberal direction. But that is a powerful lesson and a powerful point to strategize around, to build the foundation of the resurgence of the Democratic Party, is to understand how much they are loathed.
Okay, real quick before we take our first break. A Marist poll was released on Tuesday. President Trump's first 100 days. President's grade at 100 days. It was given an A, B, C, D, F. Those are the rating scales. F is at 45%. 23% give them an A, 17% a B, 8% C, 7% D, 45% F. 49% of Americans say from what they've read or heard they disapprove of Trump administration's handling of the deportation of to El Salvador of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. 35% approve, 15% are unsure. I think what Americans feel and what's being spewed on radical right media can be different. And of course, the right-wing media has to skew it and keep people all up in arms because they feed off of hate and fear. But this is what this poll says.
Yeah, well, it was interesting. I was watching, it's really hard to watch, but this roundtable with Abby Phillips at 9 o'clock Central on CNN, they had to go to commercial break last night because it's basically about 5 or 6 people around a table, and it's supposed to be pretty equal in terms of what side of the fence you're on. They were yelling at each other. Multiple people yelling at each other. That the Abby Phillips like, all right, we're going to go to break, and just and you could barely hear because they're just going at it. She just could not. She lost control of the table. I guess the producers had a stern talking to everybody. Got a stern talking to at the commercial break by the producers because they came back and everything was much more civil for the rest of the show. But I was like, damn, the discourse is getting really, really heated. It's going to a new level, and I just see that continuing as those people that gave him an A, B, C still try to cling to the hope that, we're headed towards this golden era of America. Wow.
I don't think we are. I mean, I think this is my view and kind of direction. I'm not here to change people from the radical right to like democracy, which I would say we are the party of democracy, but I'm for anybody who doesn't feels like they are a blue dot in a red sea and they don't have a home and a place. Like we are your home and your place, and we are your people. And people who are thinking, holy shit, this is not what I grew up with. I don't know my place anymore. We are the place for you. I'm not here to change the views of this other side. I'm here to create a community for those of us who feel like we don't have one. And I know you love to get riled up talking about like what the right's saying, but I want to focus. I don't want all of our focus to be on them because that's what they want us to focus on. So like, don't give oxygen to that fire.
Yeah, because
that's
when it happens, when oxygen is given to the fire, that's when the craziest shit that they're doing, like at the DOJ. I mean, all the like authoritarianism just gets overshadowed by the noise.
And I think that has to be part of a strategy.
I think my frustration is just like, what the fuck? There's just, you can reach in any direction and touch something that's alarming.
Yep.
So it's just hard for me to wrestle with that, because that's the Democratic elitism. It's like, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you so dumb?
Well, God, they play right into that hand though.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so damn easy because they are so dumb.
All right, let's take a break.
Do. This, for me, plays into your constitutional crisis. I kind of typed up like the things that we want to continue to hit on, like in our lives and in this podcast, which is Trump tariff, Trump tax, constitutional crisis.
Yep.
These are interesting ones I heard this week. Caroline Leavitt calling Amazon, they're going to notate the change in price from the tariff on their site. And
they were.
Oh, okay. I get that's changed since last night. She claims that it's a hostile political act, and I feel like these tariffs are a hostile political act on the small businesses.
It was reported this morning that Amazon will soon display a little number next to the price of each product that shows how much the Trump tariffs are adding to the cost of each product. So isn't that a perfect crystal clear demonstration that it's the American consumer and not China who is going to have to pay for these policies?
I will take this since I just got off the phone with the president about Amazon's announcement. This is a hostile and political act by Amazon.
And then this is interesting. I saw this comment on Instagram and I want to begin using it. We need to stop calling people that are pro-lifers, but call them anti-choice. So like the way they take our words and use them against us, you know, think of, it's almost like cultural appropriation. They like take something like woke and DEI and completely change the meaning and weaponize it and like fire it back at us. I want to do the same things with our words of Trump tariff, Trump tax, and anti-choice. But in that vein of our themes, this is an interview with George W. Bush in 2011 that was on C-SPAN.
I do believe there will be a rational immigration policy eventually passed. I think there's going to have to be some time. What's interesting about our country, if you study history, is that there are some isms that occasionally pop up. One is isolationism, and its evil twin protectionism, and its evil triplet nativism. So if you study the 20s, for example, there was an American First policy that said, who cares what happens in Europe? Well, what happened in Europe mattered eventually because of World War II. There was Smoot-Hawley, which was a part of an economic policy, which basically said we don't want trade. In other words, let's throw up barriers. And there was an immigration policy that I think during this period argued we had too many Jews and too many Italians, therefore we should have no immigrants. And my point to you is we've been through this kind of period of isolationism, protectionism, nativism. I'm a little concerned that we may be going through the same period. I hope that these isms pass, which would then allow for a more orderly look at immigration policy.
Yeah, and so it's just crazy that it's like these kind of like pillars of the radical right, the MAGA radical right, are things that George W. Bush in 2011 was warning people against. And like that's how far they have swung to this radical right.
Yeah.
And I love that term and I'm going to continue to say it. So thank you for bringing it to this table.
You're welcome. I think we that's the power. I think it's the simple power that maybe
history.
Well, yes. I mean, why is Sloane Roden bringing this to the Raised Red Living Blue podcast? And why is it not Chuck fucking Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries bringing it to the House floor and playing it on the House floor? Why are we not seeing this on left-leaning news outlets? It's incredible, powerful. In combination, we could talk about the compound effect of telling the stories, giving voice to the everyday American who is hurting over these tariffs, who is, I mean, just dealing with severe anxiety all the way to I'm going to have to close my business. This Iowa farmer you mentioned, if 100% of her exports or business, her products go to China, could be finished.
And I believe what she said is she hadn't begun planting her soybeans yet at the time of the interview because she wasn't sure what to plan for.
Yeah. I don't, it's just disappointing, these pundits on TV. I think they're missing it, especially on the Democratic side, just to say like, this is radical. Like let's go back and look at what was radical about Obama's 8 years compared to what's happening now. They do so much stuff just to rattle liberals, just to get them stirred up into a frenzy, like these 2028 hats. Mm-hmm. I mean, Caroline Levitt says they're flying off the shelves. I would like to see some real data on that. But if they really are, holy shit, that's just nuts.
I don't know if Caroline Levitt would know the truth of it bit her in the face.
She is I don't even know.
She makes me mad.
Yeah, she must sleep on a Mattress Firm mattress.
Let's get into your first 100 days.
All right, so I'm going to do Realtor.com first.
Okay.
Basically, this is the problem, is that Trump, in his rally, said that this is the best, most significant 100 days, most successful first 100 days in history.
Yeah, maybe from an executive standpoint, but he has passed 0 major bills.
Well, all the
0.
data, all the truth, all the facts point to it being the worst 100 days in history. So the fact that, like, it's the worst 100 days, but he can just go out there and say it's the best 100 days is really, really scary. But the Realtor.com article said, listen, basically it's been a shit show, but one possible bright spot. So the whole article was like shit show, shit show, shit show. Then you scroll down to the paragraph that begins with one possible bright spot for home buyers.
Oh.
Says the chief economist at NAR is that this trade war might actually lower interest rates. However, uncertainty surrounding Trump's frequently shifting trade policies has kept rates elevated, with the 30-year fixed rate jumping back to above 6.8% in recent weeks. So that's like a mixed bag there. Here's the Bloomberg headline. I think it's important to bring in. I'm starting to look at like BBC News, World News, but also, Bloomberg for, economy headlines. And this is like powerful. Trump says he's off to the best start as president ever. The economy says something else. Trump's second term begins with a decline in U.S. GDP, while jobs and prices hold steady on almost all fronts. The outlook is getting worse. So there was some, I guess, not so negative news in terms of jobs and prices and some investments that are being made in the U.S. economy. The U.S. economy is very resilient, but it's getting worse by the day. And a lot of the issues that are coming out in this economic news are because everybody has front loaded all this buying. Like consumers are buying shitloads of cars. People are importing. They did this massive import to try to stock shelves for 90 days. So we could be looking at just like when everything really kind of course corrects and you see the true numbers based on the reality of what's happening, it's going to be really bad and really hard for him to run from.
Well, and retailers, big box retailers, I could think like Rooms to Go, their current commercials right now are buy now at a pre-tariff rate. So that's a powerful message to create like scarcity.
It just reminded me, I wanted to make this point about what you were saying about what Amazon was trying to do.
Okay.
Which I feel like what Amazon was trying to do is be transparent. And transparency is hostile, is a hostile political act.
Yeah.
It's like when Trump sat down for this ABC News 100 Days interview, he got upset with the journalist because he was trying to bring transparency to the interview, and it's in the form of fact checking. It's so nuts.
Well, and it might not have been the same interaction, but at one of them, Caroline, her response was, and I won't be calling on AP anymore. And it's like all we have in the White House are petulant children.
Yeah, who only want to protect free speech.
For them.
If it's favorable. Yeah, if they're not fact checked. That's what free speech is to them, is not being fact checked. Very, very scary shit. What I've also found disturbing about Trump and his posturing right now, did you know that he mentioned Biden 51 times in this most recent cabinet meeting? The blame game is disgusting. There is a clear, it's just so clear that the tariffs and the uncertainty around the tariffs, I think the tariffs wouldn't be causing such, dramatic damage if there was certainty around them, because then everybody could prepare. But it's like you're saying, this farmer in Iowa doesn't know whether to plant her crops or not.
Yeah.
So there's just so much uncertainty. Here's the bright spots. Jobs report better than expected. Americans are still spending money. We have the lowest level of illegal immigration in history. We are also doing something that we should have done a long time ago with getting rid of these effing food dyes. The point I want to make is that, yes, the border more secure than it's ever been in history. Amazing. Getting rid of food dyes in our food. Amazing. The point is, we could do all this without doing all these other things.
I don't know. The food dye thing to me seems like a whole lot of stink to say you're doing something that isn't, treating a symptom and not the root cause. And if you're so fucking concerned about Red 40, don't fucking buy it.
Yeah.
But then we still have individuals who receive like food assistance, but like they're limited to like not buy like fresh produce. Like that's a problem. If you cared about making America healthy again, go after food deserts and the fact that there are areas in rural America and in rural Alabama where you have to go 30 minutes to the nearest grocery store. That is not healthy for America. This other trad wife bullshit is for headlines and to make people think they're doing something. And like I've said before, busyness does not equal effectiveness, and they're being a lot of fucking busy and not effective. Okay, I'll
Sloane
stop.
is fired up this morning. I love it. But you're absolutely right. It shows me a couple things. Number one, how effective and how easy and how fast things can actually happen. So that's great. And it also, I think, kind of stokes the fire with Americans going, well, fuck. I mean, like if it's this easy, why did we allow so many illegals to come through during the Biden administration? And that also goes to your point about the symptom, not the problem. Well, the problem is that one of the reasons we have an open border policy is because all these farmers, manufacturers, home builders, think about all this work that needs to be done to fuel the American economy, which is like the greatest thing in the history of mankind, because Americans don't want to do the work, but we're trying to get all these jobs, all this manufacturing to come back to the United States for work we don't want to do.
Right. And right. I was watching the 11th Hour with Stephanie Rule last night, and it was, people want to say, oh, we're going to bring manufacturing so I can have that job and my kids can have that job and my grandkids can have that job. Like, that's not the American dream. The American dream is for you to provide a better life for your children than what you had and set them up for greater successes than you have. But also another root of the problem of immigration is these people are fleeing dictators and failing economies, that have caste systems, that they don't have opportunity and ways to move up in the world, and women don't have rights and other things. So like when you have a global economy and you work and partner with other companies and you take industry there and create jobs for people that gives them opportunity to better their lives in their country, they will stop coming to ours.
Oh, Jesus. All right. So I don't know if I ever brought this up, but I think now, given your emotion that is coming out in this episode, I don't know if you saw this, but this was a meme with Nancy Reagan, and the top in big letters, it says, "I'm a Republican. I was against gun safety laws until my husband got shot. I oppose gay rights." And this is kind of a spin-off of what we were kind of talking about last week.
Yep.
Like, first they came for. "I opposed gay rights until my daughter came out. I fought stem cell research until Ronnie got Alzheimer's. I'm a Republican, which means I won't give a shit. I won't give a shit about you until it happens to me. I'm a Republican, which means I won't give a shit about you until it happens to me." So true. And this is the argument people are making with due process. Hell, I lost control I do these Monday trainings, which I really want you to join us one day and talk about leadership and like how to be a professional realtor. Yeah, because I really feel like it's lacking in our industry. But we have Mexican American agents on our roster right now that voted for Trump. And I was like, look, y'all better be speaking English when you're out there in the field, because your ass might get scooped up. It doesn't.
But also, English is now the official American language.
Yeah. And so you better fucking speak it or you're going to get scooped up. This is what my frustration is. I don't understand why people aren't learning faster, figuring this out faster. But Trump is not doing anything that he said. He's doing everything he said he would do. The only thing that I think we could really hammer him on is that he's saying now that he said there was pain coming. He said that these tariffs were going to bring pain and temporary discomfort, which is total bullshit. He never said that. He never campaigned on that. He campaigned on doing day one transformations on the border, the economy, on inflation, on the war in Ukraine. And that's not the reality at all. This can be seized upon. Here's a Time magazine interview with Trump. You said you would end the war in Ukraine on day one. President Trump replies, well, I said that figuratively. And I said that as an exaggeration to make a point. Obviously, people know that when I said that, it was in jest, but it was also said, but I also said that it will end. Trump said he would end the war in Ukraine within 24 hours of taking office 53 times. So if you say something in jest, if you're saying it figuratively or as an exaggeration, if you say it 53 times, I think you're trying to make a statement, not a joke.
Right.
So
It's like when you get called out on like being an asshole. It's like, oh, I was just kidding. No, you're a fucking asshole. He's just saying bullshit to, one, get elected, and two, stay out of prison. That's the grift. Oh, but also the meme coins so we can make more money. There's the 3 pillars of the Trump grift.
it's really disturbing. There are so many things. We could talk about Doge and what a failure that has been. They asked the Republican strategist on that panel I was referencing earlier to highlight some of the biggest contributions from Doge. And I was flabbergasted because he said they brought in so much IT, so much technical influence that, you know, like so many things, computer programs and stuff the government was using are so outdated and so convoluted, and they've really streamlined that. And the Democratic panelists were like, what the fuck are you talking about? We got IT, we got, you know, an upgrade in our IT. That's not the point of what this was. And people didn't have to get fired for that.
Yeah.
That's crazy. The reversal of these visas. They revoked all these visas. Like you're talking about, people are leaving oppressed countries where there's war, genocide, famine, a lack of civil rights.
Yep.
And bringing their brilliant minds here to do cancer research, to do all this stuff. And now they were just told to get the fuck out.
Yep.
But circling back on the point I really wanted to make is that it's not bluster. Okay, he's not just bloviating. All this stuff he's saying that he's would do, he is doing, and so we should take him at face value moving forward. Like with this 2028 thing, stop saying it's a fucking joke when he's saying it's not a joke.
Yeah.
But the Caroline Levitt laughs at like, ha ha ha, we love to have fun with that talking point around here, don't we? It's just for fun. We need to stop that because we're going to reach a point where it is too late. I don't know if you caught this. Jessica Tarloff talking about the MANA acronym, Make America Normal Again. She went off on a rant about that.
Bret Stephens was making this case for MANA, Make America Normal Again, and that infuriated me because people don't think that the Biden years were good. They don't think that that was normal. They don't think that having a president unclear whether they can do the job is normal. They don't think our college campuses were normal. They don't think Russia invading Ukraine was normal. They don't think October 7th was normal. They don't think that inflation was normal. They don't think cost of living through the roof was normal. So a candidate going out there and saying, Mana, let's go back to a time where we were respected on the world stage, not going to work. They're still kind of okay with Trump because he's a chaos agent. And they think that we were so messed up that that's what we need.
Yeah, there's all these things coming out, but, her warning was we don't need to normalize the things that happened during the Biden years or even the Obama years that the right is able to capitalize on. Well, going all the way back to Hillary Clinton's deplorable comment. I'm really enjoying BuzzFeed. I plugged BuzzFeed a few times on the podcast. They're just doing some really great work getting out there and finding content that people are posting online, mainly Trump voters. But this is the title of the BuzzFeed article. Donald Trump supporters are waking up to the reality of their ballot choices, and the stories are so hilarious. So I'm gonna read you one, number 8 on the list. I have been so humbled since Trump got reelected, it's not even funny. I can't believe I ever thought the left was blowing anything out of proportion. I was so wrong, and I'm so sorry. Y'all, we're sounding the bells about all of this for a reason, and millions of us called you too sensitive and stood up on behalf of people we knew that were crossing certain lines with lies. I have been so humbled since Trump got reelected, it's not even funny. I honestly don't know how anyone is still in denial about what's happening right now. And there's just a whole list of these people that are just like, I voted for Trump. What the fuck did I do?
Yep.
I can't believe it. I think that this is something that Democratic Party leaders could be looking at to also learn. Like the fact that there is something to capitalize on here. That we were not blowing smoke up everybody's ass.
Yeah, like everything Trump is doing has a direct tie to Project 2025. This was a really funny thing I saw on Instagram, and I should have saved it. And it was like, oh my God, I'm so shocked at like what's happening to the world. And the response was, I'm not. I read Project 2025.
Yeah.
It wasn't some secret document that they were keeping behind locked doors.
No.
People just don't want... people want to take the time and do the research. They want to fall into the sensationalism.
Yeah.
Of like what's exciting, and that gets like people riled up.
And before it's too late, you're going to be living under an authoritarian regime.
Yep.
Man, can you imagine if Trump and his... we have Trump, then we have Eric Trump, then we have Donald Trump Jr., and then we just have this nepotism and this authoritarian rule over America.
Already have some. I mean, we already got nepotism, but yes.
Just sum this up really quick, and then I've got somebody I want to tell to fuck off at the end. Hopefully I can do that. But NPR had a really great article on Trump's first 100 days.
Oh, I
Biden
had the same one.
Biden orders reversed. So in the first 100 days, Trump has reversed 100 of Biden's executive orders. But executive orders can be overturned or modified by future presidents. Many of Trump's early executive actions focused on undoing those his predecessor, President Biden, enacted. So within hours of the inauguration, Trump had rescinded 78. Y'all listen to this really close, okay? Trump had rescinded 78 of Biden's executive orders, largely related to climate change. Y'all, that's where we live, planet Earth. The COVID-19 pandemic. Did y'all see that he wiped on the official White House website? Mm-hmm. They wiped everything out about COVID, like instructional, informational, like here's what you should do if you think you have COVID. If you do have COVID, this is the symptom. I mean, it's just all this. It's just an informative thing. Yep. And they replaced it with this Wuhan laboratory, whether it's fact or conspiracy theory, on the pages. This is on top of them just whitewashing our history when it comes to slavery, DEI, all the things. So reversing executive actions on climate change, COVID-19 pandemic, diversity, equity, and inclusion. He has since revoked additional Biden orders on voter registration and census apportionment. 100 days in, inflation remains an issue. The annual inflation rate dropped 2.4% in March, hitting a 6-month low. Economists warn that relief could be short-lived as fallout from Trump's trade war is expected to drive prices up in the coming months. But you can see the little things they can seize on as victories. What they could have seized on is the border, but then they had to, because like the border was so effective, they had to double down and start snatching up people and now sending them to an El Salvador hellhole. And now his immigration numbers, which were his best numbers, have tanked. Yeah,
it's like, you should have just taken the W.
Well,
and then like moved on to the next thing.
Well, this is I think maybe my most important point of this episode is that, like, when they were just talking about the bluster and the exaggeration and he's just joking, because the Republicans were assuring us that they were going to start with the worst. How is a 4-year-old girl with cancer? And they keep, like, this was the point. This is my fuck you for this week is Scott Jennings, the smug asshole Republican strategist on CNN, who is such a major asshole. I mean, I want to put him and Caroline Leavitt like in a Blue Origin pod and send them out to space forever. But he was saying, what's the alternative? We separate the mother from the daughter. Like the mother, the parent made the decision to be deported with the daughter, not to leave the daughter behind. Why was she made to make that decision? Can't we just rally around an example like this and support this? And the other thing that really chaps my ass is that they act like coming into the country illegally is the same as rape and murder. It's like, it's not a felony. It is.
Well, and it's like that. You're a criminal. Get out of here.
Yeah, you broke the law.
It's that black and white and no gray and no nuance. And I mean, it's the people that it's like, well, you had a joint, so you should go away for 75 years.
Yeah.
Like,
Where have we come? I mean, why do we have to wait?
So fucking smug. Like, cause you're so fucking good.
Why do we have to wait for somebody's life to be ruined or for somebody to die? I mean, that's something that Jason Pat and I were talking about a few episodes ago about how much blood is on the hands of the Republicans when it comes to COVID, downplaying it, advising people to take it seriously, to cutting off aid to all these countries, closing food banks. What's happening in Ukraine, all these people are continuing to die because Trump is taking it easy on Putin. It's sad because we don't see it. It's just like we were talking about with Nancy Reagan. Like, if it's not happening to us, it's not happening. So it's no big deal.
Yeah.
But fuck you, Scott Jennings.
I would like to give a shout out to our homegrown Alabama girl, Miss Katie Britt.
Oh, yeah. She's been quiet lately, huh?
Well, nope, not lately.
Let's hammer her ass.
Correct. We're actually not. We're going to give her some props.
Oh, really?
We are.
She did something good?
She did. Okay, so Katie Britt was one of the senators that reintroduced a bill to the U.S. Senate on Monday called the Access to Breast Cancer Diagnosis Act, the ABCD Act. Here's a quote from radiologybusiness.com. Access to life-saving diagnostic testing should never depend on a person's ability to pay. When it comes to breast cancer, early diagnosis is critical and financial barriers can be deadly. Representative Brian Fitzpatrick, Republican of Pennsylvania, said in a statement April 28th. The quote continues, the Access to Breast Cancer Diagnosis Act, ABCD, ensures that no woman is left behind simply because she cannot afford the care she needs. I have an article from Radiology Business, but also Business Wire. And there's a little bit of conflicting information, so I would love to try to figure out, or if somebody knows more. Under the current law, payers must pony up for annual mammograms, but not follow-up tests, such as MRI or ultrasound, required for dense breast tissue or other reasons. The Access to Breast Cancer Diagnosis Act aims to remedy this, eliminating a financial barrier to imaging access. But this is what Business Wire says. While screening mammograms are typically covered without cost sharing, follow-up diagnostic tests or those requiring supplemental breast imaging can cost patients hundreds of thousands of dollars in out-of-pocket costs. These unexpected expenses often lead to days in care, with an estimated 1.1 million women postponing necessary imaging in 2024 alone. So in trying to read this, it's like, okay, is the ABCD Act waiving copay for mammograms but not the follow-up, or is it doing it for both? I can't get a clear understanding. I mean, for me, it would be make it easier to get all of this follow-up diagnostic testing and not make it so expensive. So one, props, I'm thankful that this bill was introduced. I just need to get a little more clear understanding around it. Initial thoughts.
What did Katie Britt do that was good?
She reintroduced this bill to the U.S. Senate on Monday.
Okay. All right. Mm-hmm. So all right. Way to go. I think you could do a little bit more. I guess it's a start. And then you got Tuberville, who was put on the spot about Trump's 100 days. And he was like, what did he say? Something like it exceeded his expectations. It's just so great. Anyway, read us out.
Everybody, thank you so much for joining us for another week of Raised Red Living Blue. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, full video versions on YouTube, and connect with us on social media via Instagram and TikTok. Y'all stay safe, stay sane, get outside, get some sunlight, drink water, and keep up the fight. Y'all have a good one.
Politics of fear and hate are wrong. We love you and we support you.
But America,
and love are right.
we are not going back.